In the SaaS world, software as a service, winning a new customer isn't the finish line. Nope, it's really just the starting gun. You see, in a subscription economy, the real work, and honestly, the real growth, it all starts after that contract gets signed. So let's just think about that for a second. You've closed the deal, you've won the new customer. Awesome. But now what? This is the big question, the central challenge for every single subscription business out there. It's not just about getting people in the door anymore. It's about keeping them, making sure they're successful, and actually growing their value over time. So how on earth do you do that? Well, the answer really lies with one key player, the account manager, or AM. Now, don't confuse them with a traditional sales rep who's out there hunting for new business. The AM's entire job is to cultivate and grow the relationships you already have. They are that absolutely essential human link that makes sure your customers stick around and, even better, thrive. So in this explainer, we're going to break down this super important role. We're going to look at what an account manager actually does day to day, how we measure their success, how the job completely changes depending on the size of the company, and of course, how they work with the rest of the team. All right, first up, what does an account manager actually do all day? Let's pull back the curtain and get into the nitty-gritty of their core mission. The life of an AM is a serious balancing act. They're the client's go-to person, their main point of contact for pretty much everything. Their day is this wild mix of being proactive, planning strategically, looking for growth opportunities, and being reactive, like jumping in to solve problems or fighting for the client's needs with internal teams like product and engineering. And this quote just nails it, doesn't it? An account manager isn't just some email address in a ticketing system. They are the human connection. They are the personified link, literally acting as a bridge between what the customer needs and how the company actually works on the inside. And this brings us to a really critical idea, the dual mandate. On one hand, an account manager has to be a fierce, passionate champion for their customer, making sure they're getting value and that their voice is heard inside the company. But at the exact same time, they own the commercial health of that account. They're responsible for driving renewals and finding ways to expand revenue. It's this perfect blend of customer champion and revenue owner. So we know this hybrid role is crucial. But how do you actually measure success? That brings us to our next section, the scoreboard. It's a fantastic question, right? When so much of the job is about trust and building relationships and advocating for people, how do you slap a number on that? Well, turns out in SaaS, there are some very specific and very powerful ways to do just that. Let's talk about the single most important metric for any AM, net revenue retention, or NRR. All this number tells you is the revenue change from your existing customers over a year. Now, here's the magic. If your NRR is over 100%, it means your current customers are actually spending more with you than you're losing from the ones who leave. The absolute best companies are hitting 110%, even 120%. Think about that. You're growing without signing a single new customer. And this chart shows the difference perfectly. On the left, you have logo retention. It just asks, did the customer stay? In this case, 90% did. Okay, not bad. But look at net revenue retention on the right. It asks a much better question. How much are our existing customers spending? At 115%, it shows that the growth from the customers who stayed more than covered the ones who left. This right here is the engine of sustainable SaaS growth. Of course, NRR isn't the only thing on the scoreboard. AMs are also measured on the churn rate, that's how many customers they lose, and on hitting specific quotas for upselling and cross-selling new products. And hey, it's not all about the money. Softer things like customer satisfaction scores and data-driven customer health scores are also super important for getting the full picture of the relationship. Now, it's really important to know that not all account manager roles are created equal. The job can look dramatically different depending on whether you're at a tiny, scrappy startup or a massive global enterprise. This table gives us a fantastic at-a-glance look. At a startup, the AM is a total generalist, doing a bit of everything. As the company grows, they become more of a specialist with clear processes. And finally, at the enterprise level, they evolve into a high-level strategist, basically quarterbacking a whole team around just one or two huge accounts. Yeah, in a startup, the AM is like a Swiss Army knife. Seriously, they might be doing customer onboarding in the morning, answering support tickets in the afternoon, and handling a renewal negotiation right before they log off. They are also this incredibly vital feedback loop to the product team, helping the company figure out what to build next.
Now, at a mid-sized company, things get a lot more structured. The AM gets to be more of a specialist. They can really focus on the commercial side of things, renewals and expansion. They're following established playbooks and working side by side with dedicated teams for things like customer success and support.
And then you get to the enterprise level, and the game completely changes. An AM here might only manage one or two massive, multi-million-dollar accounts. Their job isn't about the day-to-day tasks anymore. It's all about high-level strategy, building relationships in the C-suite, and coordinating an entire internal army just to serve that one client. So an AM can be a generalist or a strategist, but one thing is for sure, they never work in a silo. For our last section, let's look at that team dynamic and see how AMs fit in with their key partners in sales, customer success, and support. Okay, this is a big one because people get these two roles confused all the time. Account manager versus customer success manager, or CSM. Here's the simplest way to think about it. The account manager has a commercial focus. They own the contract, the money, the renewal. They're measured in dollars. The CSM, on the other hand, has a product focus. They own adoption and value. They're measured by whether the customer is actually achieving their goals with the software.
And what about the difference between an AM and a classic sales rep? Well, the best analogy, and it's a classic for a reason, is the farmer and the hunter. The sales rep is the hunter. They're out in the wild acquiring brand new customers, bringing new logos into the business. The account manager is the farmer. They're carefully nurturing and cultivating the existing relationships to make sure they grow and produce a great harvest year after year.
And finally, let's talk about support. The AM isn't the person fixing the bugs or writing the code, but you better believe they keep a close eye on their account support tickets. If a major issue pops up, they jump in as an internal advocate and escalation point to make sure a technical problem doesn't blow up the entire business relationship. So, when you put it all together, you see the account manager is this incredible, multifaceted hybrid role. They have to be a trusted consultant the customer can lean on, a sharp strategic salesperson who can spot opportunities, and a tireless customer advocate who always has their back. They are the engine of both retention and growth. Which really leaves us with one final big thought. In a business model where everything, literally everything, depends on keeping and growing the customers you already have, you have to ask yourself, is the person whose entire job is dedicated to exactly that, the account manager, is that the single most critical role for long-term sustainable success? It's definitely something to think about.